Welcome to Come and See, your podcast for finding truth in a world of chaos. Brought to you by All for Jesus Living Waters Ministry. With host and founder Richard Case and co-host and retreat leader Kathy Ricconi. Join us every weekday at this time to discuss news, spend time in the Word, and receive answers to your personal questions about living life in God's truth. And now your host, Richard Case.
Well, good morning, Kathy. Have another beautiful day. Yesterday we had such a great discussion about abiding, intimacy with God, His purpose for us, and as we've continued to talk about this, we're trying to help people understand really what our title is, which is "Come and See." Finding truth in a world of chaos, and that, the world's chaotic. All kinds of surprises going on, but God has a way, as we walk in His kingdom, of my kingdom is greater than all of that, and it doesn't matter. See, that's what we tend to get caught up in. Well, yeah, but the world's getting worse, or these things are happening, and aren't I going to have negative consequences from it? And God says, yeah, you'll be affected by it, but I can guide you, lead you, and fulfill my kingdom regardless of that, because I am superior to that. My power is superior, which is what we're going to learn today. But you said you saw something today about another hack. Remember the oil pipeline was hacked. Well, another one happened. What happened?
Yeah, I didn't even get to read the article yet, but I had a ping on my phone that came up talking about that the meat industry, one of the beef suppliers, had a cyber attack today.
Yeah.
And so that's going to hit some supply chain issues.
Yeah. So one of the largest beef suppliers in the world actually got hacked, and it's influenced their operation, their ability to produce and ship. And so they're, again, likely, and again, we're just seeing the beginnings of this. So,
right.
Likely they'll be offered, if you pay this much money, we'll release this, virus on your system, so that you can go back to business. And it's a number that these guys are very sophisticated, by the way, and they kind of know, like with the oil pipeline. They said 5 million, and they got it.
Right.
If you pay me 5 million, because otherwise you're going to be out way longer than that, and it's going to cost you way more than 5 million. And they do it at such a number that it's, the truth of it is that, we'd be way better off paying the 5 million than trying to fix this, which we can't fix. So,
in fact, I had heard something just this weekend. My husband was telling me that I don't know that they have located who the person is from the oil one, but they thought it was a younger person, perhaps because the amount was so low that was asked for. They didn't realize how much they could have gotten potentially for that. Yet at the same time, you think about how tech savvy people are these days, and a youth able to come in and do that, and then was just showed everyone, well, you ask a low enough number, not low to us, but low to what the value is, and we're just going to pay that anyway. And so now I think we're gonna, like you said, I think we're going to continue to see a perpetuation of cyber attacks. I think this is where we have fed the beast. People are going to recognize this can be done. And, if I ask the right number, I will get paid off, and it's easy to come right back in and do it again. And I think we'll see it hit lots of different areas. I think I want to invest in cybersecurity.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, the impact of that is we can be affected by an event now in the world that translates itself down to us, so that if this continues to be problematic for the meat industry, the outcome of that's going to be higher prices,
right?
For us that are meat purchasers, and or even
and lower supply,
maybe not even have supply chain available. That grocery stores are going to run out of it, and so we're stuck. And again, as we look at other things that are going on, Kathy, with this is just indicative of it, is inflation is starting to take place.
Right.
So that it's a cycle because of the government spending that's been going on now for many, many years, particularly when the markets were doing quite well from 2016 to 2020. The government should not have been spending more money. Right. They should have moved more toward a balance, and they didn't. And again, it goes back to, well, I thought one party was economically more solid than the other, and what I'm trying to tell everybody is, it don't matter. The system is broken because remember, what's behind it is principalities and powers. So that if we put our faith in government, if we put our faith in a party, if we put our faith in
a leader,
it's not going to be where we're exempt from the consequences of it. Well, because of what the government's been doing, and particularly what happened with COVID, where they did these stimulus programs. Remember, the government doesn't have money sitting in a bank account. They're always in deficit.
Right.
So that means we have to borrow money from other places in the world, including citizens. They do it through the Treasury, and people fund it, but you're borrowing that money and you have to pay interest on that money. Well, they've been doing that now for so many years that we're under what's called an inflationary pressure. That the cost of things to keep up have to be increased so that profitability of businesses and operations, stays. So that labor costs are going up, supply costs are going up. I don't know if you've noticed this. I've noticed it specifically, even this weekend, where we went to a restaurant, and I just happened to notice that. Well, that's funny. As little as a month ago, I was in here, and today I've noticed the price has gone up 20% on everything they offered.
Yep. That's about standard around here right now.
Yeah. Well, that means I've got to pay more. I have less discretionary income because I'm paying more for that meal. And as a result of that, now I can't go buy maybe something else. So it starts to impact everything to where the prices keep going up and up and up and up and up. And the outcome of that can be really disastrous. And we have a great example called Venezuela. They would have, literally, they had as much as inflation go up by 1,000,000%. I mean, it becomes, everything you have becomes worthless.
Right. Yeah. They were actually distributing pay twice a day, right?
Right.
Because it was worth more in the morning than it was in the evening, that sort of thing.
And so everything you had, if you had a bank account with lots of, quote, money in it from Argentine currency, it became basically worthless because of inflation. And so we're experiencing that right now. And you just talked about the pipeline, the meat packer that got whacked. That's another thing that's going to contribute to inflation because prices are going to go up. So the impact of all that is, are we exempt from that? No.
We're living in the middle of it.
You live in the world, and in the kingdom of the enemy, kill, steal, and destroy. It's to cause chaos. It's to cause difficulty. It's to cause dislocation. But see, God's kingdom doesn't surprise me, God speaking. Don't ask me to come in and clean it up, because that's what we tend to do. Well, God,
that's our natural go-to.
Just stop it all.
Just fix it.
Just stop all this inflation stuff. Just stop all these ability to hack, these big companies, this government, the grid, hey, just stop all that. And God said, well, no, I don't exempt the world. I will one day, by the way, because he said, I'm gonna come back.
Right.
And I'm going to give you 1,000-year reign in that difficult world without Satan there, by the way, which would be pretty cool. And you get to reign with me. We'll talk about that as we get into the end times discussion. But it doesn't all get resolved until I create a new heaven and a new earth.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been that way ever since Adam and Eve. So again, the chaos is there, and what I observe is it's getting stronger and worse and more chaotic because of what's going on with the enemy here. So our view of it isn't, we'll fix it all, and I should ignore it all, and what difference does it make? Well, God can guide us, lead us into his beautiful life despite that. And by the way it works, as we've talked about yesterday about promises and God's desire to fulfill things, is he does it by speaking and says, I promise you this, I will do this, my word to you. It's called Rhema. Logos is all true. And then he speaks logos, what's in the written word, as well as personally. This is what I will do for you. When? Now. My promise to you. Okay, now, we got to understand what that looks like because he said this process of me delivering promises is based upon this interesting relationship with me called faith. And that is God speaking, do you believe it? Right. Do you believe me? And there's two things that we've always talked about here in terms of abiding. Abiding isn't doing a Bible study. It's in the Word, but it's receiving what God is speaking to us. And how that works is, as he says, as I'm speaking to you, I'm always going to ask you two questions. One, do you believe it? Do you have enough faith, confidence, which we'll see what that looks like, and you trust and believe that what I've said, I will deliver? Right. Do you believe that? And then two is, as you walked in that faith, did you experience the reality of that? Did you experience it? I'm not saying this as a hypothetical. I'm not saying this, God speaking, as just to give you a fake hope. Well, yeah, it might get better, but maybe not. See, then you're back to mediocrity. Right. Well, am I lucky enough for this to actually happen? Is God really going to fulfill it? And remember, this is born out of this interesting life that we've been living as most believers is I prayed for things to change. And nothing happened. How come? Where's God? Does it matter? Does my prayers matter? I guess I've been told that God answers yes, no, maybe. So I guess most of my prayers go no. And I don't know what to do. And what you do, again, you drift into mediocrity, drift into resignation, and basically,
and into wimpy prayers.
And why bother? Basically, doesn't everything that happens happen? Isn't that God's will? And he said, no, my life for you is my kingdom life to be lived by faith based on what I'm saying, where I'm going to say, do you believe it? Are you experiencing it? And when you do, you start to realize that my life is going to be what I call covenant life. I'm going to bless you to make you a blessing. It's going to be so. I can resolve things. I can make things happen. And it's not, and by the way, it doesn't go down to, well, God, if you could just give me wealth, everything will be fine. Right. And he says, no, I'm going to walk you into all the fullness of life that was called the abundant life. I've come to give you life and give it to you super abundantly. And that abundance is going to include financial freedom. I'll give you that. But it's not about wealth. It's about all the aspects of life coming together where you enjoy the beautiful life that I have planned for you, of where I have you. And by the way, go ahead.
I was just going to say, just for listeners' sake, I would love for you to, because you've shared this a couple times before, and I think a lot of people know exactly what you're talking about, but there are those that are I think churning on. What is the difference between giving wealth and giving financial freedom?
Yeah. Well,
I think that's important to pay attention to.
We in America, particularly business people, we think wealth. if I just had more, more money, more income, more investment capability.
Translation is more than my neighbor had too.
Yeah, yeah.
Or at least equal to.
Then everything would be great.
Mm-hmm.
And as I've experienced this with people around me and the world, even around me, even non-believers that are wealthy, when I start to talk to them, their life is miserable.
Mm-hmm.
They have all this wealth, but they have with it a lot of what I call difficulty,
Mm-hmm.
which they don't look at it in terms of, well, I'm poor and I struggle that way, but I struggle in different ways because I'm not enjoying life. And God says,
Mm-hmm.
well, I want you to enjoy life. And he says one thing he promises to all of us believers. And by the way, this could be the wealthiest person here in US or China or Europe to the poorest person in Africa.
Mm-hmm.
He says, my promise is the same. I will deliver to you financial freedom.
Mm-hmm.
And financial freedom is I need more of whatever system I'm in, whether it's agricultural and I need my cows to produce. I need my food to be growing. I need to be able to barter, trade things. Or it's in, we in America, business people, well, we need income.
Mm-hmm.
So it's providing a job for me to have income that's greater than my expenses,
Mm-hmm.
wherever God has placed me. And then he'll lead me into living that out with, by the way, truth that is associated with it. So a couple important truths is, well, one, are you tithing?
Mm-hmm.
He says that's an indicator that you trust me.
Right.
And I'm going to ask you to believe me by giving away 10% or more of what I
Mm-hmm.
give you. If you do that, I promise you, you'll continue to live in financial freedom.
Mm-hmm.
That's one. Two is, as I do provide for you, I'm gonna say some things to you. One of which is this is in Proverbs 6, verse 6. Do you know who the wisest animal on earth is, Kathy?
The ant.
The ant. He says the wisest animal on earth is the ant. Why? Because when they have provision, they store it,
Mm-hmm.
and they save up for the
Mm-hmm.
winter that's going to come, for the difficulty that's going to come, and they've got plenty of stuff stored up.
Mm-hmm.
He said the wise are going to save. You're going to put money away. You're going to sock money away so that when that air conditioner breaks down, when your car has a problem, you've got the wherewithal already there. That
Right.
Oh, okay, it doesn't bother me. I've got provision to pay for that. So when things are bountiful, I save up. If I go through a dry period financially, it doesn't matter because it's still there. Knowing that God's going to provide for me and fill it up again. So there are some truth to that. So it's not a matter of, well, he guarantees me financial freedom and I don't have to do anything about it. He says, no,
Right.
I'm gonna give you some instruction. I'm gonna give you wisdom.
Right.
And by the way,
and sometimes that's even correcting. In fact, often it's correcting spending patterns. And there may be things that he instructs you personally to do that are going to feel like restrictions. But the reality is that in coming under the restriction that he is giving you, he is setting you free financially.
yeah. And when we, Linda, was a guest on us, and she can tell the story in a funny way as well. But when we first learned this, we had just gotten out of school, graduate school, in 1971, and started my first job. Back then, Kathy, the credit card company sent you credit cards in the mail.
Right. They did that when I was in college.
Okay. All
by
right.
the way. Yes. I hope that has stopped now.
Yeah. Well,
I don't know.
you're supposed to apply for them now, but they just sent them to you. So I got these credit cards, and it was, hey, this is great. Look at this. I can go charge stuff, And so we would go out, for meals and travel and clothes and all kinds of stuff, And I built up a fairly significant credit card debt pretty quick. And I'm making decent money because I'm an MBA and I'm in the business world, and I'm making pretty good money for that time. Today it would be called, in the equal dollars would be called poverty, but back then it wasn't. So we're in trouble financially because I forgot one thing. The credit card companies want you to make payments.
Details.
And the interest rate's at 18% even back then.
Right,
so you're paying 18%, and you got to start paying this stuff back. And it's like, that's putting pressure on us financially because we had a house which I bought on MasterCard in California. And think of a beautiful home. It was a brand new home in California, Southern California, and it cost $25,000. I mean, today
if you held on to that,
today that same house would be worth like $800,000 or $900,000. But
crazy.
We bought it, and we had a car. We had two cars, and we have food. We have a baby, and we got all that expense. So we're feeling a lot of pressure.
Right.
Linda and I come to know Christ. And as Linda shared, and within about 4 or 5 months, I'm learning to abide in the Word, and he says, in order for you to have financial freedom, and I started to pursue that, which meant I'm going to give you the ability to enjoy your finances where you are today. And I'll provide your income, and I'll help you with expenses. And this is what prompted my thought about this, which you stated. And so I start hearing these messages on tithing. Well, do you trust me? And if you do, he says, I promise to fill up your barns. Malachi 3:10 and 12. Well, I heard it. It was like, yeah, but. And I went this process of if you take care of me, I'll tithe. Then I'll tithe.
Yeah.
He says, no, you got to tithe now. Do you trust me? And I'm arguing with him all week, but every single day, and I'm driving back and forth to work, and I hear these messages on the radio because I'm listening to Christian radio, tithing. Yeah, but. I'm still fighting it. Sunday night, we go to church, and the pastor, and it wasn't a series. He just said, "Yeah, tonight I feel led to talk about tithing."
Oh my!
So he gives a message on tithing, and he summarizes everything that I've been learning all week. And so Linda and I were driving home, and I said, Linda, I think God's asking us to tithe. And to trust him with faith. Do we believe what he's saying? And Linda said, I think you're right. I said, okay, I tell you what, why don't we commit to tithe? And she says, well, how much? I said, well, if I'm going in, I'm going all in.
I'm going to do it right.
And I'm going to tithe 10% of my gross income. Not even worried about not net any. I'm going to get blessed. I'm going to be blessed on a gross basis. So we're going to tithe our gross income. She said, can we afford it? I said, no, we can't afford it, but we can't afford not to because God's instructing us. Do we believe it? She said, okay, I'm in. Let's go. So we get home. We literally get on our knees. We commit. Father, we agree and commit. We will tithe from this point forward, and we're going to do it the rest of our life. By the way. We will never stop doing this. We're going to do it the rest of our life, which we've done the rest of our life.
Right.
Well, Friday, I had just started working for this Fortune 500 company. And Friday, I hadn't actually, because I hadn't got my paycheck yet.
Right.
So nothing has happened, but I committed to do it. And God knew our heart. Friday, I get called in by my boss. And he says, I don't know why we're doing this, but we're going to give you a 12% raise.
Awesome.
And it was like, hey, cool. I get 2 extra percent. How fantastic is that?
Right.
And so God said, do you see what I'm saying to you? Yes. Okay. Now you got to work on the other side of this. I'm going to increase your income, but you got to go and take care of your expenses. And you're going to have a period of time where you're going to have to go through it to get to financial freedom. If you do, you'll get there. Okay, what does that look like? You can't go out to dinner anymore. You can't go to movies. You can't go traveling. You can't buy clothes. You can't buy anything on credit. You got to take your income and pay everything off.
And he led you to that. You didn't decide to do that on your own. I spoke that to
believe
you.
me, I wasn't thinking that way.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, hey, just give me.
That wasn't your choice.
Just give me the income. Hey, just give me the income. He said, no, you got to be responsible, and you got to reduce your expenses. And okay,
right.
So Linda and I did. We said, okay, we're going to not buy anything on credit. We went and cut our credit cards up, and we're going to pay everything off. And every excess money we got, we're tithing first, and then we're going to pay all this debt off.
Right.
So over the course of 12 months, we didn't go out to any dinners, any movies, didn't travel, didn't buy anything. And we could say, well, that was kind of painful. And yes, there was a little bit of pain to it, but we still had fellowship with each other and with our friends. And they would invite us over, and then we had some cool stuff happen. We had this daughter, Christina, and in California, it still gets kind of cold in the winter, so we needed to buy a winter coat for her. And again, I said, maybe we should get another credit card, honey, and buy it. And Linda says, hey, wait a second. You said no. We're not going to do this. We're going to trust God. Okay. So we said, Father, we need a coat for our daughter. Well, literally within 4 days, we open up the front door, and there's a box of clothes for a little girl. I
love that.
And in that box was a coat. And now we hadn't told anybody. So we hadn't said we need a coat. We just asked God to provide it, because you said you're going to provide it, and He sends somebody and says, you go take your extra clothes to the Case family, and don't even tell them who it is. We never knew who it was. They just dropped it on our thing, and because God said, I'm going to take care of it that way.
Right.
And we got clothes for our daughter. And it was like, ooh, how cool is that? So over the course of 1 year, my salary increased by 30%. I was in a stock purchase program in my company, and it skyrocketed. And we paid off all of our debt, except our mortgage. And within 1 year, we were financially free. We could now enjoy life. We could go back to spending, but cash, not credit.
Right.
As you sow or led.
Keeping in the principles that He was teaching you how to steward His money.
Including, by the way, as you now have your debt paid off, take some of that money, tithe to me, and then actually what I call tithe to yourself. Save equal amount of money, and then you spend the rest of it later. So I started building a savings program.
Right.
Of building savings, so that when a year from now you have that air conditioner go out or that car problem, you've got money to take care of it, and now you're free financially. And it's really simple. It was based upon this. I wasn't worried any longer about financial situation, because it was starting to become stable, and I had plenty of income. I had savings. And when things became where the problem of the air conditioner, the car, the this, the that, well, we can take care of that. And I didn't go to bed worried anymore.
Right.
And that's what financial freedom looks like.
And in the midst of that, you saw how He can provide supernaturally too.
Yes.
When you're walking with Him, and you're being surrendered and you're doing what He's asking you to do, He can provide above and beyond. And so whether He had taken you to 30% more salary and all of these other things, or whether you had stayed at the salary you were at, you now had built in faith. When I'm walking and stewarding the money as He calls me to, He is faithful to provide. And that there's financial freedom in listening to Him and then watching Him provide as well.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And we never again thought about wealth per se, that's what's going to give us God's promise. It's rather whether we're making a lot or a little. And I've gone through,
Mm-hmm.
life in both those situations, including,
Right.
one experience where I caused my own, which we'll get into when we talk about adversity, but I caused my own adversity
Mm-hmm.
because I did some things that weren't in unity with Linda, and we went bankrupt.
Yeah.
And even when we went bankrupt, God said, well, do you trust me to give you back financial freedom? Yes.
Right.
Are you going to still tithe? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to learn that lesson. And even that, as you said, becomes a joy because,
Mm-hmm.
well, God says, here's what I'm going to do. And do you trust me?
Right.
And it's hearing God's voice and hearing his promises, so that as we talk about faith, it's based upon something that's very specific that most people don't understand it, because we say have faith,
Mm-hmm.
and people say, well, I believe in God. Yeah,
Right.
I believe in God. And if I could just believe more, then I guess things could be better. But I believe in God. And he says, well,
Mm-hmm.
faith is a little bit bigger than that, different than that, because it starts with that you basically recognize that God's speaking, that I am God.
Right.
Now, what kind of life does that look like? Okay, well, let's look at this. So, if we go to we're going to talk about faith here, and we just described it really in the stories here, but let's talk about what faith is. And he, in Scripture, he said this is what it is,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's beautiful. So if you read Hebrews 11, 1 through 3, Hebrews 11, 1 through 3, he defines it for us.
Right. Now, faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. For by it the people of old received their commendation. By faith we understand that the universe was created by the word of God, so that what is seen was not made out of things that are visible.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there's a pretty cool verse. Um,
Mm-hmm.
let's start with 3, verse 3. He
Mm-hmm.
says, by faith, um, the world was created by God's word,
Mm-hmm.
God speaking it into existence. So he said that's the essence of faith.
Mm-hmm.
By what? By what I speak, because that's how everything was created, including
Right.
man and woman, earth, the universe, all these physical things were created by God speaking it, and it's called ex nihilo, out of nothing.
Mm.
So it wasn't that God took stuff and reformed it up, or moved it naturally into a certain, well, I created the stuff was there and I made it into an earth. I made it, this is what evolutionists believe, by the way, is we crawled out of the sea.
Mm-hmm.
That, well, man came out of the stuff of earth. And he said, no, I created you by speaking you into existence.
Right.
And he says it right there in
Yeah.
verse 3.
And that actually, you said earlier, you were talking about the difference between logos and rhema.
Yeah.
That word there is rhema.
Yes.
That, that is the spoken word of God.
Yeah. What I
So a
speak.
personal spoken word.
Yeah. What I speak. And he says that the material, physical,
Mm-hmm.
was created by the spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean? Well, what he speaks is superior to the material, to the physical, because it was created by him speaking it.
Mm-hmm.
So the power of that is greater by him speaking it than by him naturally doing something with it. So everything that we live with, our circumstances, the physical things of life, the issues of life, those are all subordinated to the spiritual, him speaking to it.
Right.
And he just says it. He says, what I spoke is what creates the physical, so that your circumstances, which are subordinate to me and my power,
Mm-hmm.
can always be resolved. And that's why he says different places, Luke, Jeremiah, nothing is too difficult for me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now think about that simple statement. Why not? Why are things not too difficult for God?
Because he's spiritual. And what you've just said, that spiritual trumps anything in the natural.
Yeah. So the spiritual trumps the natural, so that it doesn't matter. And that's what we're trying to say about this whole world of chaos is it doesn't surprise God and it doesn't limit God.
Right.
Because everything is subordinated to the spiritual. The spiritual word trumps that. Okay. Now, he says faith is the substance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. Okay, now, first of all, he said it's real. There's substance to it. There's something about it that is more than just hypothetical.
Okay.
And then next, he says the word conviction there in the Greek is certainty. It's the certainty, the absolute certainty. I know that I know that I know of things not seen. Okay, now let's go deeper with that. Certainty of things not seen. When we tend to observe things, the only thing we tend to be certain of is what we do see.
Right.
What I experience. Well, I'm certain of that. Yeah, that I got in the car today and I drove to the store. Yeah, I'm certain of that car and I'm certain of that stuff that I experienced. He says, well, faith is believing certainty of what isn't seen. Okay, now let's talk about that, which he actually gives us the answer. He says, the one thing you can be certain of is what I speak, what I say. It's not seen. It's what I say ahead of what is experienced.
Okay.
You can be certain of it's not seen, it's received, it's heard, it's spoken. Why? Well, he said it. I created everything by what I speak. So what I'm talking about, he says, is what I speak.
Right.
Okay, so think of it this way. If I said to you, hey, Kathy, I'm going to be in your town next week. And I'm visiting my friend Dave Dunkel up there in New Hampshire, and I'd like to meet you for dinner. So would you and Dan come to the Outback Steakhouse in your neighborhood there at 6 o'clock on Sunday night?
Right.
What would you do?
We would show up at 6 o'clock on Sunday night.
Okay.
Because you said you were going to be there.
Okay. Now, first of all, why would you believe me?
Well, because we know based on your character, if you say something, you do it.
Yeah. See, I've already demonstrated that I'm trustworthy. So, okay, I believe that. Why would you show up on Sunday night at 6 o'clock?
To be with you.
It'd be based on what? I said it.
Based on the fact that you said it.
I said it. See, I spoke it. Now, on Friday, has it happened yet? No. But you've put your action in motion. Hey, Dan, instead of me fixing dinner on Sunday night, we're going to the restaurant. You've already started.
Our plans are based on the expectation.
Because by faith, it hasn't happened yet, but by faith, you're going to show up. Okay, so you're going to act that way, and you're going to go. Now, here's also what you don't do. Are you going to call me every 30 minutes between now and Sunday and say, "Are you coming? Are you coming? Are you coming? Are you coming? Are you coming?" Are you going to do that?
No.
How come? Because see, you're certain it's going to happen, so you're not. Yeah, but. Right. You're not doing that. Okay, here's another thing you're not going to do. You and Dan aren't going to talk yourself out of it.
Right.
Well, I don't know. Maybe he's not going to come. What if he gets stuck in traffic or he gets, never makes the airplane? Even though he said he's going to be there, maybe he's not going to be there. I'm not sure he's going to be there. You know what? I'm not going to go because I'm not sure.
Right.
And you talk yourself out of it. You wouldn't talk yourself out of it because I said I'm going to be there. You believe that.
Right.
You're certain of that. And everything you did was in anticipation of that being true. Right. Why? Faith. Based upon what?
what you know.
what I said,
what you've spoken.
what I said. And see, that's what God says is faith. He says it's going to be based upon what I speak.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now, let's take that really simple. If that's true,
Mm-hmm.
what must happen?
We've got to be listening.
I got to be able to hear
Yeah.
what he says.
Right. Which we know by his word that he is speaking all the time. It's whether we're actually listening and seeking.
Yeah. If that's a requirement, that faith is the certainty of what he speaks, then I have to have the ability to hear that.
Right.
He can't be telling me, well, that's faith, but I'm never going to tell you.
Right.
I hope you guess right. I hope you just believe at the very pure level that I'll do whatever I'm going to do and good luck. He says, no, it's based upon what I speak, and you got to be able to hear it. Okay, then in verse 2, he said the elders were commended by that. Okay, this is talking about, which we've actually talked about yesterday, Joshua and Caleb.
Oh, fun.
What did Joshua and Caleb, what was the difference between Joshua and Caleb and the other 10 and then the other 2 million people? What was the difference?
They believed the promise. God told him he was going to deliver. They went, they saw the circumstances. The circumstances did not look like anything to earthly eyes should be delivered, yet they believed the promise in spite of that and said, if you say so, God, I believe it. We'll go.
Yeah, and so you can read this story. This is in Numbers 13 and 14, that they tend to send the 10 spies. They go in and they see, there's a big army there, and these guys have never been defeated. They're very powerful. By the way, they brought back these huge things of grapes that came back, clusters, and the houses are there. Everything that God said is there. The wells, the houses, the livestock. It really is
as good as He says it is,
and it's fantastic. However, these giants are there. This giant nation is there, and they've never been defeated, and they're way bigger than us. And the 10 said, we're not going to make it. Right. And because we're not going to make it, we're not willing to go. Joshua and Caleb said, everything you just said is accurate, but God. But God. Yeah. What? God spoke. He said he's going to deliver us and give us the promised land. And we believe that. Yes, the circumstances look the same as you described it. But God said, and we believe it. And it says in Hebrews 11:2, and they were commended for their faith. And they got to go to the promised land.
Right.
Because they believed it. And by the way, it says in the Greek there that they gave a good report. Okay, now, if you go back to Numbers 13 and 14, the spies said, we're not willing to go. And it says they gave a bad report. And that's why they couldn't go. Okay, now let's look at the difference. Same circumstances, and Joshua and Caleb didn't deny that those circumstances are all accurate. What's the difference between a good report and a bad report?
The but God that you just said.
Yeah. It's
believed his promise.
Yeah, and remember, they all heard God speak it, but they weren't willing to believe it.
Right.
So they gave a bad report. Yeah, I know what you said, but I don't believe it, and we're not willing to go. And God said, well, that's a bad report. Why? Well, you're not responding to what I say, which is my promise. And Joshua and Caleb, it says, gave a good report. What? Well, they believed what I said.
Right.
And regardless of the circumstances, they said, because God said it, and now we have the faith, the certainty that what he said was absolutely going to happen. Why? Because the world was created by him speaking it, and we understand that. Nothing is too difficult for God. The power of God surpasses the material. That enemy isn't no match for God. And we believe it. So they went to faith. And so he defines it as certainty of what I speak. My speaking is superior to anything you got, and nothing is too difficult for me.
Mm-hmm.
And are you willing to go to the good report, or are you going to live in the bad report?
Right.
And that'll determine the outcome.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll talk about, the aspect of faith that and we'll see that it's not even me doing it. I just got to be willing to.
Right.
And you see how beautiful it is. Any other thoughts there about this aspect of certainty and the good report and the bad report? And you have any other thoughts about that?
No, I just something I was struck when you were talking. Everybody by now has heard you say enough. Your yeah buts.
Yeah.
When God tells you something, you're
yeah
but.
Yeah.
And today, what you said, and whether you recognize it or not, was but God, but God, but God.
Right.
And when we can turn our yeah buts to but God's, that's where the power of faith lies.
Wow.
That's
really insightful. That's exactly how we tend to live. Are we saying but, or but God?
Yeah.
And are you willing to hear what He has to say? So as you're thinking about this aspect of faith, it probably elicits lots of questions. So I've thrown up on the screen there that if you're listening to YouTube, send us your comments about any questions you have about this aspect of faith, and is what is being spoken here. So, or if you want to email us questions at afjministry.com, questions@afjministry.com, we'd love to receive that and process this whole aspect of abiding, what we've talked about before in terms of hearing His word, journaling, and now as we're starting to move into this aspect of faith, that is such a critical piece of the abiding part, is that He's leading us to, and this is the beauty of it, is, well, here's what I am going to speak to you of what I'm going to fulfill for you. Right. And now I'll keep asking you, God speaking, do you believe it? And are you experiencing it? And it's all based upon your understanding that the spiritual word trumps your circumstances. Nothing is too difficult. And are you going to go back to the but my circumstances, or are we going to say, and I love what you just spoke to us, is but God? Which direction are we going to go?
Yeah.
So it's really amazing.
Yeah, great conversation. I know we're going to get into a lot more of this, so I'm looking forward to it.
Yes.
I look forward to even hearing as we talk about how He moves us from the but to the but God.
Yeah.
Because He even does that.
That's going to be the beauty of it. And we're going to see the importance of this, that the abiding is to always lead us into this intimate relationship with Him where faith is required. So if you think about that, and this is something I've understood, and then I try to help other people understand, is we tend to put ourselves, can I get into a safe, secure place where I never have any difficulty, and I can just settle?
Right.
And then be at peace. I'd like to be at peace. Okay, great. God said, well, as we're going to find out next time, actually not. Your life isn't going to be safe. You're always going to be faced with challenges. And again, the simple reason, which we'll talk about tomorrow, is, well, you're in the world. And we talked a little bit even this morning about the chaos of the meat thing and the inflation and all this stuff that you know what, you're still going to be impacted by that. And I'm going to have to speak to you about that. And then secondly is God speaking, am moving you into greater and greater and greater understanding of who I am, which requires you to believe it. Right. And I don't want you just to know about it. I want you to experience it.
Yes.
And like you're talking about doulos and being a daughter, and doulos is, He's saying, well, that's going to require faith. Yeah. Are you gonna walk with me, trust what I'm saying, and let me fulfill you to experience that element of life? And by the way, when you do, you're going to have truth, you're going to have freedom, you're going to have joy, and then I'll lead you into the next thing, which, by the way, will require faith. So
Right,
we can't
right.
get away from it.
It's a beautiful process, though.
Yeah. So we've had a great the morning session as we begin faith, and Kathy, it was really great talking through it with you, and we're excited to
Yes.
keep moving on with it.
Yeah. And if you enjoyed today and found it encouraging, please be a friend and tell a friend. Pass on our podcast to others and let them join in on the fun.
Amen. Yep. And we'd love to keep giving this away. So tomorrow we'll talk more about in depth as we walk in this issue of faith. So have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks, you too.
Yep.
Thank you for joining us for today's episode of Come and See, your podcast for truth in a world of chaos. Brought to you by All for Jesus Living Waters Ministry. Send us your questions and comments, and tune in tomorrow for more answers to your personal questions about living life in God's truth. Remember, God's will is best and none better. His truth brings peace in this world of chaos.